Global strategies are a purely niche product, but this niche is so deep and vast that entire historical epochs, planets, and even galaxies fit into it. This genre is all about empire building, gigantic scale, and harsh micromanagement. Total War, Warhammer 2. When one studio perfects the only series in its repertoire for decades, the result is obvious. Every game in the Total War cycle, with the possible exception of the Napoleonic Wars, is better than the last, and Warhammer 2 is the crowning achievement of the developers. Even if you do not take into account the magnificent picture and extremely realistic battles on tactical maps, there are still 1,000 reasons to download this game. For example, the largest global map in the history of the series, a full-fledged storyline, or a huge variety of races. Yes, only 4 basic factions are available for the game: Elves, Dark Elves, Lizardmen, and Skaven. But the old races from the first part have not disappeared. An excellent occasion to check who is stronger, gnomes, ratmen, or vampires. Endless Legend. The action of the strategy takes place in the world of Endless Space 2, but not in space, but on one of the planets. Here you will find a dark mix of fantasy and technology, 8 original races, and understood rules borrowed from civilization. Each race has its own plot, which develops over the course of the game and is replete with references to the history of Auriga and the confrontation of local inhabitants. Wars here are not limited to maneuvers on the global map. When 2 armies collide, a turn-based tactical mode is activated, vaguely similar to Disciples. Separately, it is worth noting the Army Constructor, in which you can equip units with various equipment, and the Change of Seasons, which significantly affects the performance of races on the global map. Age of Wonders 3. Role-playing game, turn-based tactics, and global strategy in one magical bottle. It can be called a fantasy analog of Civilization, but unlike the brainchild of Sid Meier, peaceful ways of victory are not provided here. If you want to win, if you please, long and stubbornly fight with the elves, dwarves, orcs, and other fabulous lads. The fighting takes place on separate tactical mini-maps in the spirit of King's Bounty, and in a massive format. In practice, this means that when attacking one hex, all neighboring armies are pulled onto the battlefield, which ultimately results in a bloody battle, often with siege weapons. Not without spells, there is a whole library of them. Both banal curses and blessings and exotic things are used, such as calling on the head of the enemies of global warming. Fantasy General 2. This project is a direct sequel to the legendary Fantasy General, which was released back in 1996. As in the original, you have to lead a fantasy army consisting of archers, foot soldiers, magicians, and cavalrymen, and then go to conquer Caledonia as the direct heir of the legendary warrior One-Eyed Feller. An army can include up to 75 units, and each of them will gain experience in battles and become stronger. Each type of unit has its own upgrade tree. So for success here, you need not only to smash enemies, but also to protect your own subordinates. Warlock 2, The Exiled. Another fantasy clone of Civilization with a map of hexagons, focused on the military component. The game has both a classic global map and an unusual exile mode, in which the world is presented in the form of tiny fragments connected by portals. Starting development with one fragment, you need to capture a whole chain of worlds, while fighting off crowds of monsters from parallel worlds and magicians' competitors. On the PC, this project was released in 2014, and not just like that, but under the wing of Paradox Interactive, a company that ate a dog on global strategies. Yes, Warlock 2, The Exiled has problems. The stupid AI stands out in particular. But this game definitely deserved its place in the top thanks to its unusual setting and powerful editor. Thea, The Awakening. Turn-based game based on Slavic mythology, combining elements of grand strategy, roguelike, and TCG. Players plunge into a gloomy world filled with fairy tale characters in order to save a small group of people who miraculously survived after the invasion of darkness from destruction. Despite the typical role-playing game storyline, players will have to develop the settlement, strengthen its defensive potential, send people to extract valuable resources, and build diplomatic relations with neighbors. Eador, Masters of the Broken World. In Eador, players become the masters of entire worlds and build their own states on small asteroids, competing with other godlike rulers. During the campaigns of conquest, not only heroes are pumped, but also armies and battles take place in a classic turn-based mode on a field streaked with hexes. The game has a non-linear story company, full of specific humor, and a very decent graphic design. The highlight of Eador is the karma system, which affects almost every aspect of your gaming activity. Dominions 5, Warriors of the Faith. Dark military strategy in a dark fantasy setting. Players operate troops on the global map, and instead of the usual milestones of technology, they study a variety of witchcraft. Most of the time, the participants in the action develop their own provinces and send commanders to capture enemy ones without bothering to be diplomatic. Dominions features about 80 factions from 3 different eras, including monsters from the myths of Lovecraft, and players embody their patron gods, spreading their influence through temples and prayers. Fallen Enchantress, Legendary Heroes. A beautiful fantasy-style turn-based strategy game that is a cross between Civilization and Age of Wonders, but with a clear focus on conquering gameplay. Players traditionally develop states, use magical creatures in battle, and do not shy away from magical arts. An interesting feature of Legendary Heroes is the champion system. A high level of faction fame attracts unique heroes with their own development branch to the side of the players, who will become a serious help for your indestructible army. If your favorite game is not included in this list, write in the comments. Thanks for watching. Join this channel to get access to perks. Subscribe, watch our other videos, press thumbs up, turn on notifications, and you will always be aware of what to play today.